Welcome to PPCM's Painful Truth. Today's guest, Rachel Denkins.
Hi, thank you for joining us today with another peripartum cardiomyopathy survivor. Today we have Rachel, and she is going to talk about her experience during her pregnancy and what happened during and after through this preventable pregnancy movement. We are all women coming together, and Rachel's here today. Thank you, Rachel, for joining me today in your time and talking about your peripartum cardiomyopathy PPCM experience.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. And I know a little bit about your background and your story. What was the year that you actually experienced your pregnancy, not your birth, but the pregnancy?
So my pregnancy started in December of 2020. I found out I was pregnant with twins.
Okay. And what month was that?
December 2020.
December 2020.
Yeah.
And how long until you started to notice that you were developing some symptoms, and what were those symptoms that were making you a little concerned about your health?
So I actually went into preterm labor around 35 weeks, 34 weeks. 34 weeks actually. And I was in the hospital, and I kept telling them, I said, something's wrong. My pulse should not be 150. My pulse should not be 140. I was like, my stretch marks are swollen. They looked like balloons, and there was fluid moving around in my stretch marks. And looking back, my cardiologist said that was one of the symptoms, was fluid in your stomach. And they just told me I'm pregnant with twins. It's my anxiety. I need to get over it, get out of my own head. So I actually ended up signing myself out the hospital because I was like, you know what, they're not going to let me have the babies. I was like, they're not listening to me. So then I actually went into
who are they? What are where did you give birth, or who was
North Fulton Hospital in Atlanta, Georgia, Marietta, Georgia. No one would listen to me at all. So, and one of my legs were swollen and one of them weren't. I actually ended up having a blood clot in my lung too. So I had this going on and that, and no one just would listen to me. And I went back to the hospital, had the twins, got induced at 36 weeks. And then after that, it was just a downhill spiral. It was horrible.
So you got worse after you gave birth?
Yeah. So I went home. I was texting my midwife. I was like, my feet are the size of basketballs. And my OB.
Who was the midwife?
And
does she have a company, or
yeah, she has a private practice. And then her overseeing OB, because a midwife has to have an overseeing OB, was Dr. I believe, with Providence Women's Healthcare of Atlanta and Roswell, Georgia, actually. So I called my midwife, and she was like, look, you need to get out of your head. You need to get psychological help. There's something wrong with you. Okay. She's like, all of this is in your head. So I went to go see her a week later after having my twins. One of them was in the NICU. I wasn't really paying attention to myself as much as I wish I would have, but moms are always putting their kids first. So I actually went to her. She didn't even take my blood pressure. She looked at me and said, you're fine. So then I started to develop a cough when I got home. So I went to another doctor. They said, you have bronchitis. So then I went to another doctor. They said I had bronchitis, and they're just giving me cough syrup. And then one of them gave me antibiotics. And then I'm getting sicker as the days are going on. My feet are swelling. Absolutely. I have fluid. I'm not eating. I'm throwing up every day. My skin's turning green. I can't sleep. When I lay back, I can hear crackling in my chest.
I remember that. I had the same thing. Yep.
Yeah. Felt like pop rocks are exploding in my chest. And I looked at my husband and I said, I'm going to die. And he's like, we're going to the hospital. So I get to the hospital. Shout out to Kennestone Hospital for saving my life. It was a 7-hour wait, and I was going to leave.
Who saved your life?
Kennestone Hospital.
Is that where you gave birth?
No, it is not.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So you were smart not to go to the same hospital and you were going to different doctors. And I think that's what's also important for women. They always tend to just go to one doctor because they trust that doctor, they trust that midwife, they trust that doula.
Yeah.
And really, it's very important on who is caring for the women and the pregnant women. You know, I
had a doula too, but she was really good. She encouraged me to go to the hospital.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that's really important because then she listened to you. She felt like, okay, this is beyond, you know, my education or training. She didn't blow you off. She said, you know, I feel like you should go to the hospital. And that.
I have text messages from my midwife saying, I doubt you have a clot. I doubt you have cardiomyopathy. Avoid the hospital at all costs because of COVID.
Well, my doctor, Dr. Allison Canavan at Cedars-Sinai, you know, she had absolutely zero awareness to when I was telling her during my pregnancy, she was sending me to a nutritionist and telling me that I was fat, basically, and that I was gaining so much weight. I went from 105 pounds to almost 200 pounds, and she didn't think there was anything wrong with me other than I was eating too much when I was barely eating, and I was pricking myself every day. I had to prick myself. So I understand like how, you know, these birthing professionals can very much minimize our symptoms because they're not properly educated on peripartum cardiomyopathy. And that's why we're here talking today about how this is extremely common for most women, everything that you're saying. The fact that she said this to you while you're pregnant with twins, and when you would go home, how would you feel about it? Like, did you feel?
So she would always call me like a drama queen. So like I always felt like kind of like personally attacked by her. In the beginning, we had a good relationship, but towards the end of the pregnancy, when I had a lot of stuff going on, you know, so she was a concierge midwife. So she would like come to your house, you know, check you, see if you're dilated and things like that. And, you know, she would just always call me a drama queen. And that's what I'm getting to. So I was in the hospital and then, you know, she's like, I need to come see you. I was like, no, do not come to this hospital. I was like, no, I was like, I don't want to see you. I don't want to, you know, so I'm in my hospital bed. They're telling me that I'm dying because I have a blood clot in my lung and my heart's only at 15%. The ejection fraction rate is only at 15%.
Your EF was at 15%.
Yes.
And what was your BNP? Do you know your BNP number?
It was like, when I looked at it the other day, I believe it was in like the thousands. Like I would say it was over like 30,000. Like it was very high. Like I was in complete 100% heart failure. And I'm sitting there with my mother-in-law. And you know, this midwife, she does not work at that hospital. She works at Wellstar, North Fulton, you know what I'm saying, but she does not work at Wellstar Kettystone. And I see someone come through the door with their little badge and their abuse of power, violating my HIPAA rights. And it is her. She walks in, violating my rights. I told you, I don't want to see you, but you walk in anyway, violating my rights as a human being and say, I thought we were done with the drama.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there. My mother-in-law just looks at me and my eyes are watering and I'm just like, are you for? And I looked at her and I was like, I told you it wasn't my anxiety. Just because like people have anxiety, they really feel like, you know, you're not being taken seriously.
You're not taken seriously. And that's what women have been struggling with since the beginning of time. You know, this conversation that we're having should really be an ancient conversation because there are so many preventions. So now hindsight is 2020, you know, after the fact, did you go back to her and say, you basically put my life at a life threat, and you called me a drama queen, you know?
So I had the twins in July of this year. So I had the twins like in July. So like a couple months ago, I literally just got my recovered diagnosis 2 weeks ago. I just recovered.
Okay. So you haven't gone back to her to say, you know, yet to her, you called me a drama queen, but here I was peripartum cardiomyopathy, PPCM. You never provided me a diagnosis for me to be treated. So I was left untreated and could have possibly died. And you were
Yes, I did. And my husband did. We said we were very disappointed. You're a private midwife. We paid out of pocket for you. And I even wrote my story on Facebook. A lot of people were very upset because I have like a lot of, clients and friends, who were very upset and wanted to speak up against, on my behalf against her. Sure. And I texted her, told her how I felt, and I actually got a cease and desist letter in the mail. She threatened to sue me if I continue to tell my story.
That's her, it's her practice. I mean, she's scared. I mean, the high risk management department at Cedars-Sinai, they're a big, huge hospital. They had to make it seem like that it was my fault. And what my doctor said was I got the bad luck of the draw. Because they are terrified to be sued. But the reality is that mentioning a hospital and mentioning a person that is delivering life outside of your body, literally delivering your babies, that name is not, you're not talking slander, you're talking the reality, and you're angry. Well, she sent me the cease and desist, but she still has pictures of me and my twins on her Facebook. I'm like, can you pick a side here? Well, she's terrified, because she lacks so much awareness and she puts you at a life threat. And so, of course, her first immediate response is, if you mention me, well, guess what? She was your birthing professional. And you did, in fact, have peripartum cardiomyopathy, PPCM, and you were never diagnosed. You were never treated until after you gave birth, from what I until a month and some change after I gave birth and I was dying. They said the heart failure or the blood clot would have took you out first. And they said the blood clot is probably the heart failure and the blood clot kind of go hand in hand sometimes, but they're saying that, if they would have listened to me about the blood clot, I probably wouldn't have had the heart failure. But the blood clot ended up between my lung and my heart, pressing on the right side of my heart. And my valves, they were all leaking, moderate to severe leaky valves. They're not leaking anymore. But, it took a toll on my body. When I left the hospital, I was on oxygen. I had to pay out of pocket for my prescriptions the first month, which was $2,000. I had to buy an oxygen machine, $2,000, and here I am. I just had twins and I also have a 6 and a 3-year-old too, so it was very hard. And then like my provider, she just really, kind of got her money out of me and kind of wrote me off. We were supposed to do a postpartum checkup, after I got out of the hospital. And she just kept, just like ignoring me. And I was like, you know what, don't worry about it. I don't want to see you anyway. And then she just started getting nasty. It's not my fault, and stuff like that. They have to blame somebody. So usually that's what my doctor kept doing. They kept blaming me as if it was my fault. And her lawyer's like, she's very sorry this happened to you, but you need to leave her alone. So common, and that's so unfair. And this is why I started this platform, because I feel like there's no justice for women to be listened to. And you have every right to feel everything that you're feeling. Like just the lack of respect for women that are suffering and struggling and dying, and no one is listening. When we're putting our lives and our babies in their hands. And when it's all said and done, if something goes wrong, they immediately don't want to have anything to do with you. And that's why I feel like our conversation today is so important for so many women that are hopefully listening to your story and knowing that you deserve to have a voice. Okay, so today, well, I guess let's start because we got cut off, but hi, we're back. So we are just discussing about medical professionals not listening to women that are suffering and struggling, especially when they have babies inside of them. How are you feeling today? What is your, with everything that you went through, how is your health today?
So I'll be on medicine for the rest of my life so that I don't relapse and go back into heart failure. I still have symptoms sometimes, I don't really swell, but I'll like gain like 2 pounds or 3 pounds overnight because we have to weigh ourselves every morning. Like my routine for my life will never be the same because of this. And my cardiologist told me, they said, if they would have caught it sooner when I was in the hospital, when my stomach was swollen, my EF probably could have been like 40, 40, maybe, like 35%, not 50%. Sure. They said, if they caught it sooner, you probably wouldn't even have had, all this, extra stuff going on, the shortness of breath, the fluid in my lungs. I lost.
Well, yeah, if you cure the condition, then you don't experience the symptoms.
So, right. I had lost 25 pounds of fluid in 12 days.
Wow. It's just, it's heartbreaking to hear that you've went through this and now for the rest of your life due to your birthing professional, your midwife, not having any awareness during your pregnancy. Have you?
And I still have to go to cardiac rehab. I'm still in cardiac rehab, like working out and stuff like that. I actually met with like one of the best heart failure specialists in Georgia, Dr. Brian Howard. And, he's amazing, when he told me I was
healthy your whole life, you've been healthy.
So they actually found out that I was born. So this last MRI I got, they found out that I was born with kind of fingers on my heart. So like a LV non-compaction, but that's like separate from peripartum cardiomyopathy. This is a genetic birth defect. This isn't that didn't cause my cardiomyopathy at all.
No, I understand that. Yeah, my mom had a heart murmur, but she was born with it. So it had nothing to do with.
Yeah, I was actually 100% healthy, active. I just turned 25. I was diagnosed when I was 24. Healthy, active, my daughters, they're gymnasts, so I'm always running around, going on walks, runs, hikes, and I still to this day, haven't been able to go on a hike, today was my first time. I know this is going to sound crazy. And since my diagnosis that I've been able to eat scrambled eggs because I remember throwing up scrambled eggs every morning. I know it's kind of graphic, but my psyche is very messed up from this. Honestly, I'm not normal anymore. I don't really trust, health professionals at all, it's my anxiety is worse now. And my PTSD is horrible. I'll see certain things that'll trigger me.
Yeah. I mean, because you have been pretty much healthy your whole life. You've been a very active woman, girl to young lady to woman. And now this has changed you forever and you're no longer the same person. And, mentally, that's kind of where I feel is our most balance. You have the heart and you have the brain. And, I suffered majorly. I had my times of death called and I lost a lot of piece of my life in the coma and everything with my baby. And, once I recovered, I wasn't fully recovered mentally. And I think mental health is so important when we go through something like this, because I feel even as time goes on, it doesn't get easier. It's almost like you start putting the puzzle and the pieces together and then you're oh, why did I do this? Or why did I say that? And then you have all this other anxiety on top of, just the trauma and the fear of possibly not being around for your babies.
Well, it affected my kids too, because mommy was home on oxygen. Mommy couldn't walk to the bathroom by herself. I came home on a life vest because I was having life-threatening arrhythmias in the hospital. Mm-hmm. So my daughter's what is that? And I'm not going to lie to my daughter. I'm this is going to shock my heart if I pass out and die. Sure. And, telling my daughter that I have a high probability of death, and that I'll visit her as a bluebird or a red bird, that does something to you mentally. Cause I don't want anybody else to tell my kids, oh, she died. No, I'm going to tell my kids that there's a chance mommy might not make it. And, that affected my 6-year-old, but I would never lie to my daughter about my health because I want to be the one to tell her about it. And that is traumatizing to both of us.
And I can very much relate with that. My son is 5 and we had this conversation last night, actually. So it's, he's trying to understand what heaven is. And my parents passed away. So he says, when are they going to come back to life? And then he knows that I can possibly relapse. And so he's got to it affects the children terribly, the PPCM babies and the other siblings and the babies in the house, because, this disease affects the entire family when there's negligence on behalf of the birthing professionals. And, mental health is so important when it comes to surviving this disease. We have to be strong for our babies mentally, and I think physically it will help us as well. Is there anything that you're doing for your mental health with this?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I see a psychiatrist, and then I'm on like anxiety medicine, and then just like being around like my family and like my friends, I have a couple of friends, and just like really being around my kids, like that helps, going outside, being around my animals, that helps a lot. But like, I feel like no matter what, I'll still never be the same, because like you're 24 years old and they walk in and they're telling you you're dying and they don't even know if you're going to make it the next 2 days,
I was going to say, how old were you when you were pregnant with the twins?
24, and I had them at 24. My 25th birthday, I was wearing the life vest.
Wow.
And it's just awful.
It is. It's a young woman disease that is preventable, and enough women have suffered and struggled since the beginning of time. And I struggle I have a natural bond with you. I talk to you, and it's like I know what you went through, because I physically went through it too. I mentally went through it. And when you're talking to me about these things, like about how you have to be strong for your daughter, and you're going to be honest with what the reality of the experience that has led you to now, that it has changed you forever. This midwife, and I'm very sorry that she's not the type of birthing professional or midwife that can take on responsibility and just say, I'm so sorry that I didn't have this awareness, but thank you for bringing this to light and for moving forward on any, pregnancy that comes. I'm going to do the proper protocol, but should be a proper standard protocol, which is number one, knowing your BNP test. And
I told her that. I was like, please check your patient's BNPs. And she was just like, she never wrote back. Like at first she's like, yeah, we're going to raise awareness. And then she was like, I don't want to be blamed for this. Let me hit you with the cease and desist. Leave me alone. Don't want nothing to do with you. And your body, your fault.
And that is where women today, that is where women today are still struggling with this disease because of birthing professionals that don't take us seriously even after the fact. Even more so, she should be not deceased and dismissed. She should be taking on her profession seriously, because if she really cares about women and babies and bringing them into the world and caring for the mothers that are carrying these babies inside of us, then something would happen. And I get this all the time at OBGYN hospitals, private practices. They just don't want to hear it. They don't.
Well, her lawyer said it's not her fault because, I went to an urgent care and they said I had bronchitis. I went to her though, and she said that it was my anxiety. And then I went to another urgent care and they said it was bronchitis. There's no fluid in your lungs, so you don't have pneumonia. But then they called me
because she's not educated of the preventions and the diagnose for maternal mortality. And PPCM and peripartum cardiomyopathy is medically proven that no woman should suffer or die unless she's never diagnosed and never treated. So it's her fault for never diagnosing you and for never treating you, period. It doesn't matter what the hospitals say after the fact. She was your birthing professional during your pregnancy. She's 100% responsible, and she's also 100% responsible for her actions after the fact. of finding out what you went through. It shows what kind of a person she is. If she's a good person, or if she's a person that cares, or if she's a person that really is just like, I'm in it for the money, or I just really don't want to have anything to do with it because it's not joyful.
Because even when I did the x-ray at urgent care, they called me, actually. I'm remembering this. They called me and they said, hey, you should make an appointment with a cardiologist in a couple of weeks because your x-ray, your heart looks a little enlarged. And they're like, it's probably nothing. So I texted her and she was like, it's nothing. She was like, she's like, I doubt you have cardiomyopathy or blood clotting your lung. And I just kept getting sicker. So I went to the hospital, like I said, and, the hospital, they were just very surprised that, that like they missed this, the hospital, they caught it right away, right away. They're like, you have this blood clot, let's check for heart failure. Cause I could not stop coughing. There was this cough that would not go away.
I remember that.
And I was just like, I remember crying. I'm like, is this cough ever going to go away? And then they put me on oxygen and then the cough started to go away. And, yeah, she just was just, it was the abuse of power for me coming into the hospital after I told her not to. That's a HIPAA violation. That right was taken away from me. And I've reported her to the midwifery board and like nothing has been done. She's silencing me and my experience with her. And I'm tired of being silenced by.
Absolutely. And I agree. That's why I am so sorry that she silenced you. And it's unacceptable. She is a woman, from one woman to another. It's disrespectful, especially when she's caring for you, and yes. Not caring. And so, one of my biggest reasons why I built this platform and why I'm so grateful for you to be here and talking about your story and being open and transparent about something so traumatic. Like it's like a nightmare you cannot wake up from. I know that I just feel like ever since this happened to me, it's very haunting. And I cope with, hearing women like you and giving you a voice and feeling like you are being heard and you are being listened to, and everything that you felt and everything you feel now is legit and it's real. Yeah. And death is real. And when you just gave birth to your babies, you want to have that joy feeling. She took that from you.
Oh, I couldn't even hold my twins. They were newborns. I could not hold them. The thing that mainly sent me to the hospital, I was trying to feed myself a piece of pineapple and my hand was shaking and my hand looked like it was turning green. I couldn't even hold my babies. And, I couldn't wake up during the night, you know what I'm saying? Like, and feed them because I would be awake, but like, I couldn't feed them because I couldn't hold them. Like my husband had to do all of this by himself. Like I did not get to enjoy the newborn stage with my children. I did not get to breastfeed because it was like, pick this medicine that's going to save your life or breastfeed. So all of that was robbed from me because it wasn't diagnosed sooner.
I had that too. I couldn't breastfeed as well. I get a lot of midwives and doulas. They're like, oh, breastfeeding's above all, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, side note, I coded 3 months after giving birth. Here, I think that I'm fine. I was going to take my son to Philadelphia, New Jersey area to visit my family, and California. And I called the pediatrician. And I said, I'm not breastfeeding. Do I need to give my baby any vitamins before he gets on the plane or travels? And he said, actually, 3 physicians said this to me, pediatricians, that if you were breastfeeding, you would need to take vitamins. But because he's not being breastfed and he's being fed formula, he's getting the nutrition and the vitamins that he needs. And then I also noticed that a lot of babies would be more limp and they wouldn't be as strong as the babies that were being, bottle fed. Now, I believe that breastfeeding is very important to get those, those antibodies that those babies needs for a little bit. But
I always said fed is best. Whatever the mom wants to do, like whatever they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, whether you breastfeed or you don't breastfeed, I mean, as long as the baby's healthy and getting the right nutrition. I mean, they make such a big deal about breastfeeding. And then my mom, before she passed, she said, Lindsay, she said, you weren't breastfed and you came out perfect.
Right.
So she's like, and so I had to get over that with the breastfeeding. It was robbed from me. It was the whole experience, just like you were robbed. The person to take responsibility for that is your midwife.
And like the postpartum depression was awful, like looking at my kids, not wanting to blame them, I feel like that's something like postpartum cardiomyopathy, moms struggle with. You look at the babies and you're like, is this your fault? Is it my fault? Whose fault is it? And like, it's like you get in this train of like messed up thinking, like whose fault is it? And it's like, how could you even blame the babies? But it's like when you're depressed and
it's your doctor's fault.
Yeah, it is your doctor's fault, but like the mental loop, they put you through has you question everything. And the way I was treated was disgusting, disgusting. It's appalling. I'm already going through postpartum depression, can't breastfeed my children, can't hold them. I'm on oxygen. My cardiologist.
And they're like, what? Go away.
And my cardiologist, she said when she saw me, I actually see my cardiologist on Monday. Because I wouldn't do a heart failure clinic and the cardiologist. Like they were a great team. They said, we cannot afford to lose you. They said, we can't afford to lose anyone, but like, you're a young mother. I have all daughters. They're like, we can't afford to lose you. So, my cardiologist, she told me the other day, like a couple months ago, she was like, when I first saw you, I was very worried because I had to ask them to give me a wheelchair and bring me downstairs. I could not walk. I was just so beaten up. Like I felt like I got jumped or something, you know what I'm saying? And I felt like my body was shutting down and they said it was shutting down. And I know when my cardiologist sees me on Monday, sees that I'm recovered because she already sent me a message. She's like, you're recovered. Like, I know when she sees me, she's going to be so happy. And, it's people like her that make the difference. Dr. Ahuja, she makes a difference. You know what I'm saying? Dr. Brian Howard, they make a difference.
Cardiologist makes a difference as well.
Yes.
And you know what? So that's why, the medical profession, a good medical professional are ones who actually care.
Yes. When she saw me, she's like, they didn't give you a water pill. I was like, no. She's like, this is going to stop your coughing. This is when I got out the hospital. I'm still coughing. She's like, so they didn't give you a water pill? I was like, no. Gave me that water pill. 2 days later, stopped coughing, started dropping the fluid. Like, I really believe she helped me. I was drowning. My lungs, I was drowning inside my own body, and people don't understand that.
Right. And that's exactly what happened. I know what that feels like.
Because they just want to pump you full of fluids at the hospital.
I was just blowing up, drowning in my fluid. I did drown in my fluid. I had cardiac death.
Wow.
I went the full death.
You died and came back to tell your story.
Yeah, absolutely. My cardiologist, she says, you just didn't experience cardiac arrest. You experienced death. I was pronounced dead over 30 minutes each cardiac arrest. And I've been a healthy woman my entire life. That's why this is an induced complication. Most women are extremely healthy and very active, and it's a young woman disease. Young women do not think about mortality, let alone thinking that maternal mortality could happen to them. And that's exactly what we're doing. We are drowning in our fluid, which is why the BNP test is the only test that determines whether or not a woman is experiencing PPCM. And the fault comes down specifically not to anybody else except for the birthing professional that has lack of awareness of the BNP test. Really, the NT-proBNP test is the most accurate, and never diagnosed and never treated. It is 2021. We are in a very high technology in the United States of America.
Yeah.
We have technology up the wazoo. We have to spread awareness. No one ever stepped up. Not one cardiologist, not one gynecologist since the beginning of time until right now. Me and you talking about this, you experiencing what you experienced and suffocating until basically almost death, me suffocating until death, is disgusting. Unacceptable. They have no right to make you at fault, put us through the ringer, make us feel like there was something wrong with us when really in reality we were dying.
Well, they act like women don't know their own bodies just because we didn't go to school for whatever amount of time they went to school. But it's like women are very intuitive with their own bodies. And I knew something was wrong. In the hospital, I said, stop giving me fluids. I'm swelling like a balloon. They're like, oh, we have to stop at labor. My kids would have came out perfectly fine. When I had them at 36 weeks, they were over 7 and 8 pounds each. And I had them naturally, well, with an epidural, but like vaginally. You know what I'm saying?
Like
they
do. They put the IVs in us, all of us, and we're
yes. And I'm like, stop giving me fluid. I'm like, I can't breathe. And they're like, no, we need to stop these contractions. And I'm like, it's my body, my choice. But they take away that choice from you when you go to the hospital.
Sure.
Or at least if you're under the care of again.
Sure.
But, you know.
Because what they're doing is they're inducing a cardiac arrest by adding more fluid on
exactly.
drowning in our fluid.
Yeah.
It's the lack of awareness, and it's the professionals for not having the awareness or the.
I'll send you some pictures of like my feet, video of me in the hospital. I documented. So when I was sick for about 2 weeks, I have a video almost every day. I'm like, I'm still sick. I don't know what's wrong. I was documenting it the whole time because I was like, I'm still sick. Don't know what's going on. Still sick. The day I went to the hospital, I looked like
piece together. Send it all to me. I will put it together, and I'll put a separate, aside from the Zoom call, I'll add it separate on And I can send you the text messages where it says avoid the hospital, don't go. Absolutely. I think that this is why women today are still struggling, and it's so important for us to talk. It's so important for the doctors to talk. It's so important for cardiology to talk with gynecology. It's so important for survivors to come together and say, enough is enough. And that's why I think, I'm so grateful for you to, I mean, you look beautiful. Thank you. You too. Thank you. And you're here, and you made it. And you're going to save lives. This Zoom call is going to get out to other young women that are maybe not even pregnant yet, that are thinking about getting pregnant, and just pass this, this video along and is watching. This could save a life. You stepping forward and feeling like, I need to get this out. I need to talk about what happened to me because I need justice, but also all women should have the right to not feel like when they're dying and they're got a baby inside of them that they're at a lost cause. Right. And I was already high risk because I was pregnant with twins, multiples, not just one, but multiple. Right. So they should have been watching me extremely close. They should be watching any woman extremely close. But yes, I'm here today to talk, for the people that aren't here anymore as well, because there's a lot of women who have not made it. They died from this, and whatever their autopsy says probably isn't the real cause of death, if I may add that. Because they're just saying, from having the baby, you know what I'm saying? Pregnancy induced, whatever, blah, 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 blah. They're not saying peripartum cardiomyopathy. They're listing it as other things to save their butt, Exactly. And, I also hear, when we do spread the awareness, and we are advocating for the women who have passed on. We are their voices. We are the voices that they are on the other side, kicking and screaming and what happened, because they were healthy prior. It's an induced pregnancy complication, and now they're not here. We are their voices. We are advocating for the women that are not pregnant yet, the women that have passed on from this disease, and the women that are currently struggling and not knowing what is going on, and their doctors sending them home fine. And so, that's why, when I talk about this on Facebook and I bring it up to midwife groups and doulas groups, I get a lot of responses is that it's spam, that this disease is spam. They call me spam. Well, they say it's not common. A lot of people say it's not common, but when I went to my cardiac rehab, they have an OBGYN there that monitors us because there has to be a doctor on call, whether it's an OBGYN, a primary care doctor. And he's like, it's more common than you think, but then you'll get other doctors who don't even know what you're talking about. It's, there's not enough awareness. Which is why we're showing people that it's not rare. PPCM peripartum cardiomyopathy is not rare. It's rare for anyone to have awareness. It's rare for anybody to step up and say, this needs to stop. This is not rare. This is just very common. 1 out of 4 women in the United States of America, from what we know of, experience this. Every 3 minutes, a young woman either suffers or dies from this disease. And the main diagnosis and the kit and the instrument is available anywhere globally except for the United States of America. And I was talking with Dr. Fett, Dr. James Fett, and I was helping this young, lady, this young girl who actually she didn't make it, but she kept trying, and I was helping her. And it was the SFLT1 is a cardiotoxic. -1 stands for genetic, and the PIGF blood code stands for placental growth factor. These diagnoses and kits are available in Canada, in other parts of the world, but it's not FDA approved in the United States of America. So we have to rely on the BNP test, cardiology, at 20 years old, 24 years old, when we've never had a heart problem. We're giving birth. We don't have a heart problem. But the heart is not the problem. The heart is caused by the fluid and the blood suffocating the heart. The heart is caused and is affected by the cause of the fluid. And
I begged them to not give me any more fluid, and they just kept pumping it through me. And I was like, I felt like a prisoner in my own body. My rights had been taken away. They wanted to stop the babies from coming, so they did whatever they wanted. They did not listen to me once.
Right. And that is appalling. It is disgusting. This needs to change. The way that women's health and wellness during pregnancy, this pregnancy movement is the most important movement since the beginning of time. Women have been giving birth since the beginning of time. I felt the exact same way. They put stuff inside of me. They didn't even check to see if I was allergic. I was highly allergic. They shoved it in my heart. We are basically, we have no rights when we're lying there, and we're helpless, and we're women that just gave birth. All we wanted was to have a beautiful family and to create a beautiful life. This could have been prevented, which is why this catastrophe is so sad. This disease is so sad because there's such an early prevention.
And I've been told I can't have any more kids, else I will die.
Yeah, I can't have them either. And
if I wanted to give my husband a son, we have all daughters, I can't do that.
Right.
And it's my body, my choice. And it just goes on to kind of saying what you're saying, our rights have been taken away. Now my right to have children has been taken away because, nobody wanted to listen to me.
Right. Because you were not saved in time for your life to not be in such a threat. But if you were saved in time, which is very common for all pregnancies, to gain fluid but if your persistency, if you're gaining more and more fluid, then that should be a sign for these birthing professionals to know, do something. If this test is normal and this test is normal, keep digging, get the right test, do your job, be a medical professional and dig deeper. Not everybody and every person is the same. But
I paid out of pocket for my midwife. She was supposed to be one of the best midwives in Georgia, concierge midwife, and it was just an awful experience.
The one thing that's common with women is that we all have blood and fluid, and we all have, we all need to have more awareness on that a woman can literally suffer and drown in her own fluid if she's left untreated and misdiagnosed. And that all comes down to the birthing professional. It's their fault, 100%. It is not your fault. It is not your children's fault. It's not your baby's fault. You did nothing wrong. It was just the lack of the negligence of having any awareness
And that's what I struggled with for so long, because I was told it was my anxiety, my problem, you know, my body. I did this to myself. Like, I felt like I was medically abused by this professional telling me that I have a psychological problem. I already know I have anxiety, but don't say, oh, well, it's getting worse because you just had children, so you need to hit a psychiatrist up and get on anxiety meds ASAP. You know what I'm saying?
To a drama queen?
Yes.
Right there?
Broke into the hospital to call me a drama queen.
Wow. Well, on this note, I'm very grateful for you to be here with me, and we will get the word out. And thank you for supporting the getting the word out and advocating for all women and getting the proper care that you need to continue to have your I see. Okay, be a good boy. Love him. Okay, well, I don't know how to wrap this up. Why don't you wrap it up? Do you want to wrap it up?
Sure. Well, thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for your fun. Thank you for your voice. Thank you for your platform. I really appreciate you having me here today. And allowing me to tell my story, because, you know, I felt like I was never going to get my story out, especially with that cease and desist. So I really appreciate you for giving me this opportunity, and I hope we can meet in person soon.
I would love to meet with you in person. I'd love to take this actually live in the future. You come out to Los Angeles, and we will do a in-person interview. And I'm so happy to, you know, spend time with you anytime. You are a fellow heart sister. I am connected with you. I relate with you more than any woman probably can. Like our support group, all women that struggle with this can relate. And thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. It was my pleasure, and I'll be talking to you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us and listening to the PPCM Fund podcast. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. PPCM's Painful Truth is made possible through the generous support of donors like you. Help us spread the awareness by donating at ppcmfund.com. Or click the link below to become a member through Ko-fi. Also, remember to join us every Monday and Friday for Mom Day Fitness. Have a great day.